Welcome to our fourth show, Families Grow Together. My name is Aqua, and I am going to be your host for tonight. And we have our lovely Nelly doing the presentation again tonight. So, for the past couple of weeks, we have been looking at communication. We looked at different types of communication, what communication is. And last week, we looked at communication with oneself. How do we talk to ourselves? We all know that 90% of communication is not what you speak. It is mostly nonverbal, your body language and things like that. Only 7% of our communication is words. So today we're going to see how we're going to use our words to have difficult conversations. So over to you, Nelly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another show, another live show. So today we'll be talking about having a difficult conversation. As I'm talking, I'll just be loading up the slides so we get along with it. So welcome everyone to today. Today we'll be talking about having difficult conversations, and I'll just get right into it. So our agenda for today is what makes a conversation difficult? Why do people, us, avoid having difficult conversations? Communicating with difficult behavior types. Communicating effectively with different behavior types. And how to have difficult conversations. At the end of this, we'll have discussion. And in that discussion, I'll call on you to comment. So we'll talk about it because you have various experiences and we will learn from you as well as you learn from us. So please share this video, put your comments down below, put any questions you might have. Just before we get into the slides or what we are talking today, I just have a question as a little tickle, so you get yourself thinking as we get along. When was the last time you avoided a conversation that you thought would be difficult? Just have a think. And as we go along, just leave that question to be lingering at the back of your head, because that when you have that in mind, it will help you to understand this in a different way. So, what makes conversations difficult? There are various reasons. In these slides, I will not address all the points, but when you go home, you are in your homes, most probably. Just think about them because the time is too short and we will not be able to explore everything. So emotions is a massive thing. It gets in the way because most of us live our lives directed by our emotions. And just thinking that growing up, we were told, or maybe not even heard, that we can talk about our emotions. So we just suppress them. We do anything with the emotions rather than expressing them. So then we develop fear, anxiety, anger, guilt, and other emotions that make us struggle to live our daily lives. And these emotions, when they are suppressed, they really impact the way we talk to people. Sometimes it might be just a simple flow of conversation, but because we are in anger, anxiety, or whatever emotions you experience, what you think might be very different from what comes out from your mouth. So that one can make a conversation very difficult. Another one might be still fear-based. What if? So uncertainty of the person's, the receiver's reaction, and you as the sender, how would you react to the other person's reaction? So it's reaction and counter reaction. And again, what if the outcome goes wrong? Sometimes we fear to know the truth, and that impacts on how we communicate. So then we find that conversation difficult. Sometimes we might say, it's because of that person, it's because of us. Though identifying that is from oneself is very slim, it is easier to say it is from the other person. Another factor might be assumptions. We might be making a lot of assumptions that probably the other person will react in a way. It could be the way the person had reacted in the past, or probably is the way some other person has reacted to a similar situation in the past. So you make lots and lots and lots of assumptions. The next is tension from putting it off too long. You might have avoided to have a conversation that you perceived is difficult. And in so doing, you put it away. When it comes to mind, you're just like, no, not today, not now, later on. And as you are postponing it, the tension increases. And by the time you open your mouth to speak, something else comes out. And sometimes if you listen to those words, you are like, but where did those words come from? Because sometimes it comes as a shock that what you say is not actually what you wanted to say. Though, in effect, it's actually what you had in mind, but it was just the way you expressed it. So another aspect that makes conversation difficult is the fear of reliving that past experience. Like in the past, you might have had a conversation which turned out not the way you expected. And then you don't want to relive, to experience that same conversation that you had. So these are some of the factors that contribute to conversations being difficult. And just on this picture on the left, there are many different factors that goes into place. You have personality, the environment, our internal state, and our social environment, like peer influences, authority influences, or social competition. I'm not going to talk about this much because in the previous sessions, we talked about conversations a lot more. So we'll go on to the next. So why we avoid having difficult conversations? Just have a think at the question I asked before. When was the last time you avoided a difficult conversation? Just think again. What did you think about that you avoided to have that conversation? So here, there are just a few that I'll mention here. You might have avoided that difficult conversation because you thought it was being self-defensive. It's a self-defense mechanism. Just avoid it because it's easy, because of fear. You don't want to deal with your unresolved problems. So what experience you had in the past that you did not like, and you might not want to expose your vulnerability because sometimes we think that expressing how vulnerable we are is a weakness, but sometimes actually it takes a lot of strength to actually accept that you are vulnerable. It becomes like not really rewarding when you complain about your vulnerable situation without looking for a solution. So again, this point are some of the things that make us to avoid having difficult conversations. So communicating with difficult behaviors. So it is common to say, people, this person is not listening, that person. But then there are personality types that leads to different behavior types that is good to understand. Like on the left on the screen, you'll see dimensional model of behavior. And they have come up with 4 different behavior types, like The one is initiatives, low regard. This behavior type are hostile or arrogant. They are goal-oriented and independent, and they thrive on a sense of accomplishment. The next is they are avoidant, they are low regard. So this type of people of behavior are the reluctant type. I'm not the one who put the reluctant type, by the way. This is just what the people who came up with this labeled them. So they say these people are slow movers. They are wary of change and dislike disruption. The third is they are avoiders, high regard, and they are overly social type. So they are social and have the need for acceptance. And the last one is the challenge and innovative type. So with this, they do things, they don't need a lot of motivation. Rather, they work and challenge others and get others involved. So their behaviors are simultaneous with their values, and this results to respect. It yields sustained commitment from others. So just looking at these 4 different behavior types, if you understand those around you, or if you can identify people's behavior types, you might know or develop ways to communicate with that particular behavior type effectively, instead of taking one approach to deal with every person. Because if you understand the behavior types, then you will modify your communication so it is more effective, and the people will not feel like they are being harassed. Because to some people, when you talk, they feel that they are being harassed, and their reaction will be very defensive. And then because they are defensive, the sender of the message becomes defensive. So it's defensive against defensive. And then it needs to argument, and it doesn't resolve anything, or the conversation doesn't go anywhere because everyone wants to prove a point. So then, how do you communicate effectively with different behavior types? Like I just said, understand the behavior types first. So for the first type, be explicit. State the purpose of the conversation and stick to the task. Ask for their help or opinion, because like it shows that for this group of people, when you ask them for help, they want to engage because they feel that their opinion counts. And imagine when someone feels that their opinion counts, they feel valued, they feel worthy. So ask them their opinion and how they can help in that particular situation. The next is be well prepared, as they will better receive than when it is spontaneous. So you need to plan. Challenge them to come up with their own ideas and solution, instead of just telling them that this is how you want things to be. No, again, just like similar to number 1, ask them for ideas and solutions. So they are making valuable contributions to that conversation. You have the third type. To communicate effectively with them, leverage their need for acceptance, because that is what they desire. And this will keep them focused. Allow them to socialize, but make it clear when it is interfering with their relationships. It could be at work, it could be at home, it could be with the children, it could be with relatives, any, but if it's impacting on their relationships. And then we have the last one, which is, okay, my screen is covering it. We have the last one, which is, these people are open like we talked in the previous slide, these people are easygoing. They involve other people. They encourage other people to do things. So for them, encourage them to have open conversations. And this will inspire them. And same kind of behaviors from other people. So it's like a reflection because they want to work as a team and encourage people to do things. So too, they need that back. So when it is reflected on them, it's like gives them that momentum to keep going. Then the next one, how to have difficult conversations. I don't know what ways you use, but these are just some of them because there are just so many. And it's not like everyone has to use this, but people develop different ways. I'll just talk on a few here. One is prepare and have a desired outcome in mind. Just note that this outcome in mind is not the result that you will get. It's just like a reference. So it will direct you if you want to go out of topic. Having a desired outcome in mind will help you to bring back the conversation to where you want it to go to. So then it will act as a focus. So you don't just talk everywhere, and avoid the thing that you had to talk about. So this one will make the conversation not to be as difficult as perceived. The next, set the tone. It is common that when we perceive that a conversation will be difficult, we go in being very defensive that, you know what, I am going to win in this conversation. But no. Instead, set the tone. And sometimes when you have that mindset that a conversation will be difficult, you already prepare defensive ways on approaching or on starting that conversation. And the easiest one is you started with, you did this. I don't like the way you did it. That one already is very defensive because the receiver feels that they are being attacked. Whereas if you start by, there's something called the I statement. You say, I feel probably violated, or I feel sad that when I speak, you don't listen. In a way, you might still be passing on the same message, but you are focusing on how you as a person feel, which is why you use the I rather than the you, whereby the person feels attacked. So it's just to modify how you start conversations. So the next one is similar to the first. So communicate constantly. Because when you have something in mind and you don't talk about it, the mind doesn't rest because thoughts keep on coming up. And imagine you had something to say in the morning and you don't say it, thoughts build on that thought. And by evening is something else. And one of the things is the mind is so creative. So when you put in any information in your mind, it looks for solution. It looks for other things. The mind doesn't know if it's good or not good, right or wrong, empowering or disempowering. It just does its thing to come up with creative ways of dealing with that particular thing. So by the time you want to talk about this topic in the evening, it's something else. I'm very, very convinced that is why this old saying goes that don't go to sleep when you are angry, or resolve your issues before you go to bed. Because if you carry those issues and sleep with the issues, the mind just does its own thing. And you will not even know where that is coming from, but it's just mine. It does its own thing to be very, very creative. And the saddest thing is, it will be very, very real in your head because that is the only place it has been created. So don't go to sleep with anger. Resolve all your issues before you go to sleep. Sometimes you might want to resolve it by writing a letter or a note to yourself that, or writing a letter or a note that never gets posted. But the idea is to take out that thing in your head somewhere else. So it could be on a piece of paper, it could be on a voice note, it could be anywhere. Because when you are angry and you speak, it is dangerous. Because the things that come out, if you are calm and you listen to yourself, you will not believe that those same words came from you. So just be mindful. So listen to the other person. It is common that when we're having conversations, people are like, you are talking to someone and they're like on their phone, they are reading, they are doing something else. And then, like the speaker can notice that the listener just get up and probably they picked on one word and just comment on that word. And straight away, you understand that they've not been listening. They've just picked on that one word. And then you think that, oh, you've been talking the whole time and they've not been listening. That one is very, very disrespectful because it shows that whatever the speaker was saying was not of any importance. Sometimes we think that we can multitask by doing many things at the same time. But there's nothing like multitasking because the mind switches very quickly. It's not that you are doing the same things at the same time. And when you miss out what another person is saying, it discourages them from even speaking. And then I'm sure you've heard, you are not listening. Sometimes people listen not to really understand what people are saying, but they listen to what they're saying and they just wait to give a response. And that one, you need to actually listen when a person is speaking. Be present. Put all distractions away like phones. Put them away because they are sources of distraction. When you are having a conversation, separate the facts from your emotions. A majority of the population in the world today live life based on their emotions. Emotions, we feel emotions, but emotions are not us. Our emotions does not define us. Because we take it personal, it seems as if it is our emotion, but no, our emotion is like a vehicle. So always separate and make a decision based on the facts and not on your emotions. And the last one I'll talk about is be comfortable with silence. People struggle with this silence because when you're having a conversation and it goes all quiet, there's a common saying that the devil has passed. But observe that silence because so many things happen when there's silence in conversation. People are thinking, people are coming up with insights. When I'm talking about be comfortable or observe silence, people fill it with the just want to look for something to put inside. It's not helpful. Just let it go. Let everyone be silent. People, you don't know what's going on in people's heads. So just observe that silence for a bit. So there are many other ways how you can have difficult conversations like this. If you have some more, put them in the chat for us. And I'll just summarize now. So observe your emotions when you're having conversations. it's best to separate the facts from the emotion. Your emotions are not yours. So don't take the emotion personal. Control yourself and remain calm and focus on the outcomes of the conversation. Understand the other person's perspective. And if it is difficult, just go back to what is making it difficult. Is it you? Is it the person? What are you avoiding? So this is why I put the difficult in quotes, because it varies from one person to the next. The difficult conversations of person can become our biggest lessons. Though at that time, when you're having that difficult conversation, you might be saying, had I known, I wouldn't have started this conversation or got into this conversation. But after, you might reflect and you think, oh, this is it. That is it. Oh, yeah. Next time. So you see, it might become your greatest teacher. And even those with the various behavior types that I talked about, those behavior types might be your biggest teachers, and you will learn a lot. And imagine if you learn how to have conversations with different behavior types, then your conversation, you'll want to be having conversations, because regardless of what, you will not be going there being defensive. You'll just have a conversation. You'll just talk. And the last point is have the right perspective and deal with any situation with honesty and confidence. So thank you so much for this. I'll pass it over to Aqua. So we'll go now to the discussion. Thank you, Aqua.
A lot of information. Thank you very much. I don't know who's listening, who's watching out there. Put in the comments one thing that you think you have taken out of this presentation before we go on to the discussion. So I'm going to take you back onto your slides, Nelly, so that we can at least discuss one thing on each slide, because all the slides were powerful. Some of the information I'd not heard before, especially things like the personality types and the behavior types that people have, and how to have conversations with these people. So I'm going to take you back to the top, and I'll try and ask only one question on each slide so that we do not take forever. So thank you again for your presentation. Now, if you look on your slide 3, please put it up so that if people can see, then they'll know what we're talking about. You can share it again, please. So your slide number 3 talks about what makes a conversation difficult.
Okay, let me just look for that script, for that slide and share it. Oh, that one. Oh.
Yeah, okay. I love this picture. Because when you look at the diagram, it says a lot. There are many different things that contribute towards making conversation difficult. So what I'd like you to explain to us, please, is how the environment can impact on the conversations that we have and how it can make the conversation difficult.
Yeah, environment. Thank you for that one, Aqua. So physical environment. It could be, say you are in, I'll start with the home environment. If you are in a house whereby it is too cold, we might take it for granted. Say the house is too cold, that already people are not in their normal body temperature. They are uncomfortable. The home environment, it might be that there's no food, people are hungry. That is an environmental factor. So just think in that light. Physical could be anything. It could be health. It's still part of it. It could be the children or no one. Just so many. I'm really struggling to come up with things because it's just so wide.
Mm-hmm.
So think of like you are where you are.
Mm.
Have you got lighting?
Thankfully, yes.
How would you be speaking? Obviously, you have lighting. That's what you want to be talking to someone when you don't have electricity. How then will you know you are even talking to the person you think is there? So that one will make you question yourself, or many things will be running through your mind. So that is a physical factor. So I don't know if I'm sure I've talked about like 3. Do you want me to give some more?
No, that's fine. So, what when you say that, especially when you talk about the home environment, yeah, it could be a home environment, it could be a job environment, it could be public space in the community where you're in the park. So, what I wanted to say with the physical environment is that when we want to have a difficult conversation, I think we need to find a conducive environment. Because, like you said, if there are all these, let's just say, negative aspects in the environment, I'm cold, maybe I'm hungry, maybe something has happened and I'm sad, the way I will talk will be different from when I am happy and warm and I've eaten. So it's important that we mitigate these things and that we look around us when we want to have a conversation. Choose the right place to have that conversation. You have to make that decision that, okay, if I'm going to talk about, say, for example, you have an issue with one of your children, maybe take them out to McDonald's, make them feel comfortable, and then you have that conversation. Even though it's going to be difficult, it may dampen the what's the word? Help me out.
The
The
conversation,
impact
the impact
of what you're going to say.
You say that is what you've just said is a good point. Is just elaborating on what I talked about, how to have a
Yeah.
difficult conversation, which is preparation. So you are talking about the preparatory stage,
Right. Okay.
where you need to consider what is that conversation you are having. How is the physical environment? Is it suitable? So you say that is the preparatory stage that you're talking about.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah. Thank you. That's true. Thank you for that correction. And then, what are our different personality types? Can you give me some personality types?
For personality type, it's a massive one, and
just a few couple.
You have it's not. We have different personality types. It depends on what test you are doing. For instance, there's Ising, who has 5 personality types. You have introversion, extroversion. I can't remember all of them at the top of my head now because I haven't done that.
Neuroticism or something like that. Conscientious.
Yeah, so there are 5 of them. But then if you go to like Myers-Briggs personality, there are just so many different types. You've got the main ones are introversion and extroversion. And within the introversion, for instance, you have particular ones. I think there are like 5 or probably more on introversion for Myers-Briggs personality test. And there are also for extroversion on for Myers-Briggs personality test. So it's so massive.
Okay.
You have, yeah. So it's good to understand the personality type of the person you are dealing with. It doesn't mean that you have to harass them to do a personality type.
I was just gonna ask.
Test. No, you don't. Because personality type is not static, because it changes depending on different factors like environment, the person's state of mind. Though there are baselines, but it changes. It's not like if a person presents let's say quiet, the person will be quiet all the time. No.
Mm.
Okay, I'll give an example with myself. I am an introvert, but sometimes I don't even think that I'm an introvert because I just talk and talk. And when I get in an environment where I feel very comfortable, it's like the words just shoot out from my mouth. So it's not static. It doesn't mean that because I'm an introvert, I am quiet all the time. No, sometimes I'm just like very, very high in energy. So it's good to understand. You can pick up on people and how they behave, what situation they behave, what way. So just pick up on those. That's how you would know, or you have a rough idea of what that person's person or behavior type is.
Thank you for that. So, for those who are watching, I hope you will remember that some of the things that make conversations difficult. So things like your emotions, things like your assumptions, the tension that you're feeling because of that situation. I know that our social environment, our personality types, and the state of mind affects how or can contribute towards us having difficult conversations. We'll move from that slide now and talk about avoidance. Now, I have been told that I say things as they are, but sometimes I feel like I avoid certain conversations. So, for that person who is considered an extrovert, who people think talk all the time, can they also be avoidant in certain situations?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think sometimes there's a lot of stereotypes attached to personality types.
Mm.
We are being selective. So extrovert, they talk, yes, because the reason why extrovert talk is because that is how they get energized. They get energized from being out there, being social, just talking to new people here and there. That is how they get their energy. They can speak to any kind of person, but they are selective because they can't just see someone and just talk about their history when they were born till that day. So they are selective of what they say. Whereas on the other hand, introverts, I know you've not asked about introverts, but when you talk about extrovert, it goes with introverts.
Mm-hmm.
So like introverts recharge when they are alone. That is why introverts have so many names like the shy one, the loner, they call them so many things. If you don't understand the difference or the characteristics between introvert and extrovert, you will get them completely wrong. So introvert prefer to spend quiet time because sometimes they suffer from information overload, whereby their mind is like they have so much information in their mind that they can't even think because it's so much. So then it drains them of their energy. So for them to recharge, they spend time alone. It's not that they are avoiding people, but it's part of their self-care. So again, it goes down to your question is people not necessarily being avoidant, but being selective. Though, if you are being avoidant, just going back to the slide that I said before, some of the factors, think about it because you as an individual will easily identify the things that you are avoiding, except you are in denial. But then you know that those are the things you are avoiding, but then you still deny because denial is something that people is common because it's easy just to avoid and deny that something is existing because you don't want to deal with it or take on the responsibility. So yeah, it's for you, the individual, to identify, accept that this is it. If you keep on denying, it will never change because you are the only one who can change that situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So looking at the why we avoid these difficult conversations, one thing that strikes me is the vulnerability, because sometimes we do not want to get hurt, and we don't want to be, because some difficult conversations require us to be vulnerable, require us to put our hearts on our sleeves to have these conversations. Maybe uh, um, you're talking to your parents, and there's certain things that your parents say that you're trying to, stand up for yourself for something that maybe your parent will shout at you. So sometimes it's hard to put yourself, or even you have, or maybe a relationship that you are trying to fix, but you know that if you bring up that conversation, they'll either smash your worries, or they'll not take you seriously. So you're scared that you're going to be hurt or rejected instead of being heard, like you said. So speak to that for me, please. Vulnerability.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. I think I hear that a lot. But the thing is, what you avoid persists.
Exactly.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Of course.
So if you fear to present as vulnerable, just to differentiate that, presenting that you're vulnerable and considering your safety, these are two separate things. So if you think that your safety is at risk, you need immediate help or get out of that situation. But if it's to talk about your vulnerability, that is something else. But the thing is, if you avoid to talk about how vulnerable you are, that is fear playing in there. So then it will keep on coming up because fear is a defense mechanism that the ego uses. So it will keep on coming up over and over. It might change forms, but because it is fear-based, it will keep on coming up. You've not dealt with it. Whereas if you face that fear, know that, yes, this is me, and you deal with it. Okay, for instance, let's say you did something, and that because of what you did, you were vulnerable, and then you had to explain yourself. You don't want to talk about what happened because you know that the listener will take your information and use it against you. So then you will feel more vulnerable that it is your information, what you did, you trusted whatever that person is, and you told them, and now that is it. So things like that, you might want to avoid. But the thing is, how long are you going to keep avoiding it? Whereas it goes down to work on yourself, self-awareness, because if you work on yourself and you know who actually you are, and you reconcile with yourself, and you give out your information and it is used whatever way it is used, that is their issue, because someone's perception about you has nothing to do with you. And in one of the slides, I talked about acceptance. One of the behavior types is acceptance. No, it's not. Is it acceptance? So, no, it's not acceptance, but the social type that you are on mute, Aqua.
Right. So you talked about leveraging our need for acceptance. So
Acceptance, because that acceptance, it is a human need. We want to be accepted, which is why we do things for other people, even when we don't feel comfortable doing those things, because we want to be accepted, we want to be approved, and things like that, which instead of reducing how vulnerable we are, it increases how vulnerable we are. But if you have a high level of self-awareness and you say whatever has happened in the past, it don't matter, because people will always say things against you more than what they'll say for you. It doesn't matter. Let them say, as long as it is not infringing on your
Happiness,
who you
joy,
are, just
peace.
let it go. Because if you keep on hanging on to, oh, I'm vulnerable, and you don't want the other person to dwell on it, then you will continue to be a prisoner to yourself forever. So it's for you, it starts with working on yourself, because you can never please everyone. And that is a mistake that so many people are doing, because again, for the human needs for acceptance.
Okay, thank you. So what I see here is that these things are intertwined. There's none that works in isolation. So our fear may lead, maybe because we don't want to be vulnerable, or because it's easy for us to avoid the conversation. We take the low road, the easy way out. So thank you for that, Nelly. So next question that I'm going to ask, I'll skip the behavioral types because we've elaborated on them quite a bit. So how to have difficult conversations. I know you touched on that when I asked about the environment, how to prepare for, the environment for having a difficult conversation. How to have a difficult conversation. I was listening to, what's his name? Simon Sinek earlier about having difficult conversations, because I thought, okay, let me do a little bit of research. What do other people think about this? And what the little clip that I saw that he was when he was talking about leadership, how leaders need to take the first step to have difficult conversations. Now, he specifically talked about race, but that is not the only thing that can lead to can be difficult to talk about. There are lots of different things that happen, even in our daily lives, even among, even between spouses, even between parents and children, siblings, colleagues. We have to take the leadership role if we know that there is a conversation that needs having. And it doesn't mean that you know everything because you're the leader. It means that you're willing to be vulnerable and to say that as a leader, I am struggling with this conversation myself, but we need to have it. So, what do you think as leaders? How do you think we need to handle difficult conversations? Put the leadership hat on. That is my question. As leaders,
Yeah.
as moms, as managers, as directors of companies, how do you embed this culture of facing difficult situations in your everyday life?
Yeah, thank you. That one is a powerful one. Yeah, when you were talking, this one word kept on ringing in my head: integrity. So, when we talk of leadership, everyone is a leader because people lead their lives. So, wherever you find yourself as a leader, though some people willingly give up their leadership role by like other people deciding for them, we might not consider ourselves as leaders. But to be more specific, I will go to like managers, seniors, parents who act as the leaders in wherever they find themselves. So one thing that is traditional that it is changing in leadership is previously or traditionally, we consider leaders to know everything. And just going back to our families, our parents, that's how we used to look at them, because they are our first authority figures who we consider leaders. Our parents, I think it was last week, I said, all our parents came out first in their class. So it is that kind of thing. But then that's not integrity, because when children are younger, they really believe in their parents that, oh, they never failed. But then when they are older, they start understanding and judging their parents. And some of them are like, oh, you can't even pass a simple test. So again, it's thinking about that. But now, because there's a lot of shift, like being a leader, you need to take on the first action. It doesn't mean that you know where that action will take you to. No, it's just that go somewhere, you have that vision, but then every vision is followed by an action. So then take that action. You can ask, because if you are a leader and in a team, you work with people, everyone has their limitations. But when we work as a team, we tap from each member within that team. And that is what makes a team stronger. So as a leader, make it an environment where people will talk, feel comfortable to talk. So when they come up with different ideas, then you join the ideas and it grows, it's bigger. But if you as a leader, you want to dictate to what people do, which is very common, which is what I call the traditional way of leadership, but it is changing. You need to make a comfortable environment where people can talk openly. Like you talked about Simon Sinek. I like him. I watched one of his videos where he was in this village where it was like a hole and a snake was in that hole. So a dog went into the hole and he was digging. There were some people around the dog and they were talking to the dog, like giving encouragement, giving encouragement. And the dog was digging, 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 digging. And I found it really, really funny because in the background, Simon Sinek was making some comments on leadership, that is leadership. Anyway, so it's to create that environment for people to feel comfortable. Take that leading role. Take the leading role, because as a leader, you don't need to do everything on your own. As long as you have that vision, get other people behind you, make that environment so they can talk. Because as a team, people have different abilities. You come up with them individually, but then collectively it's stronger and powerful, and then get along. You're on mute, Aqua.
Technology, technology, technology. Thank you, Nelly. Thank you very much. We really do need to take a leadership role, and we need to start by leading ourselves. So,
Oh, just let me go in there again. Sorry.
go on.
I will give an example with myself. I'm sure I said it last week or the week before about mental health.
Mm.
I think a year ago, when I started talking about mental health, I was told by some close friends that, Nelly, why do you have to talk about mental health? At that time, I didn't even consider myself as a leader, because what I know now and what I knew at that time are very different. So then to me, it came as a shock that I have worked in the mental health sector for over 10 years. I have, like last year, I experienced mental fatigue, which is mental ill health. And I was talking about it because I wanted people to know that mental health is not only for the white people as we have been told. Everyone experiences mental health. So then when I was told that, no, we don't talk about mental health does not affect Black people, I was like, no, that's not true. And instead, it gave me encouragement to talk about mental health, which is why till now, I can talk. Mental health is the topic that I can talk from today till tomorrow, because it's something I am so passionate. If everyone on this planet can feel comfortable to talk about mental health, I will be very pleased to know that. So in my own little way, I know I am a leader
You
in
are a
that,
leader. You are
because
definitely.
even with my children, with people I see, I talk to them about mental health. When I go anywhere, I know it's a topic people avoid, but because it's something I know I have experienced. I have worked with people who have experienced it, and I know a lot of people are experiencing mental health issues, but don't talk about it because of the taboo and all whatnot. So I just talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nelly, and thank you for being a leader in the community, in our community, and for opening that topic of conversation, because it is something that really needs to be talked about. Like I say, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health condition in their lifetime. Right, we've got a couple of questions from our own dear Ango. Ango, thank you for joining us and thank you for participating. You're one sure encourager. So,
So
Ango says,
just before you go, should I stop sharing?
you
So,
could do for a minute, but I'll come back to that. I just wanted to bring in Ango's
okay.
questions before we go back on the
Mm-hmm.
slides. So Ango says here that she's put on quite a few comments. So she's agreeing with the things that you're saying. And there's a question here. It says that there are some stubborn people coming from a place of trauma even. So they persist to enter your space, no matter your boundaries. Do you find um, do you find a way of to emphasize or just to keep maintaining the boundaries till they bow to your own needs, or what do you do?
Okay. Thank you so much, Ango. So boundaries are something that people easily encroach. But for your sanity, for your health, you need to keep amending that boundary. But then when you put those boundaries, think of it. Are you putting the boundary because it's fear-based or based on love? Because those are the two primary emotions. We humans are made out of love. But then the opposite of love is fear, and fear it takes, I would say it is taking over from love. So Ango, when you're setting boundaries, first of all think, because you cannot just say stop. Stop is no answer. Let's say, okay, let me just give a common example. Let's say you have made your routine that you don't receive any calls after, say, 10 p.m. But then you have that stubborn people who want to ring you at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. You might say, oh, this is a one-off, I'll just answer. And you answer after 10 o'clock. What does that person think? That, oh, she said 10 o'clock, but she can answer after 10 o'clock. The next day, they call at 12 midnight. So it keeps on. And then you say, oh, it's just a one-off. Like that, the boundaries will not work. Whereas if you say, okay, your cut-off time to answer phone calls is 10 o'clock, you need to show justice to yourself. 10 o'clock, 5 minutes past 10 is after 10. You need to be disciplined on the boundaries you've set, because if you don't show the example, others will not do what you want to do. Because you are putting this boundary out of self-love, you want to take care of yourself, because probably you need to do some journaling or do some meditation or whatever just to calm down before you go to bed. But if you cannot maintain that boundary, don't expect anyone to maintain it. But it's not like a mountain that you put boundaries. You need to be going gently, because you cannot just shift from one day to the next day and say no. It needs to be gradual, but you have to be very serious about it. But the basis of it is, why are you setting this boundary? Is it coming from a place of fear, or is it coming from a place of love? Then take it from there and keep reminding yourself. Be flexible with it if it's not working, because you cannot just stop it. You can replace it with something, what is not working, with something that you hope that will work until it gets to the stage where it works. But you need to be the one whom they say, put your foot on it.
Okay, Ango, you've heard the response. Put your foot on that pedal. Right. So Ango, boundaries. We all set boundaries for different reasons, and Nelly put it in a very nice way, which I wouldn't have even thought about love before putting the boundary there. I'd have just said, please, my space. So we are learning every day. Why do we put these boundaries? And like you said, if the person is coming from a place of trauma, maybe they need help. And maybe you're not capable of giving them the help that they're requiring, and they keep encroaching into your space and maybe telling you things that you're not ready to receive. Maybe you yourself are not ready for it. So it is important that if we have people who are struggling and who need that listening ear and we're unable, maybe help them signpost them to somebody else or to an organization that can help if they are willing to accept help. So sometimes people will come to you because you are available, whereas you are not able to give them what they actually need.
I think, yeah, let me just add a bit on there. Like just going back to the place of trauma, if people who are being traumatized come to you, just like Aqua has said, signpost them somewhere, because they are struggling to deal with their emotions and whatever happened to them. But then if you give them that opportunity, that they come to you and they complain and they mourn and they talk about what they've gone through repeatedly, whatever you are doing to them, you are giving them a listening ear, yes, but you are not helping yourself nor them, because it's just going through that cycle, the same thing over and over. So instead, you are encouraging them to just go ahead with their trauma. Rather, you can, if you have the resources to help them look at solutions to the trauma, rather than just listening to the trauma without helping them to solve it, because you can't solve it. It's only them who can solve it. But if they don't have that resources, then you can ask them some questions that can help them distract or take them their focus, rather than just listening to them. Because like Tony Robbins said something, that if a person is depressed and comes to you and you listen to that person, before you know it, you too will be depressed like that person, because you take on a lot from them. When you notice like that, Tony Robbins, he's always with a lot of action. He's like, stop. Because when you stop that cycle, you are helping that person to know that they are valuable. Their trauma does not define who they are. The trauma is an experience. So helping them to differentiate their emotions from the fact, which I talked about before, differentiated, because a lot of people live their life based on their emotions, and it is a struggle. So yeah.
Thank you. Right. So Ango has another question, and there's Lara down in the comments who also has a question. So let me just give Ango's second question here before I go down the comments. Ango asks, when you say we talk about our vulnerability, will the opponent not use this knowledge against us?
Yeah, this is what I said earlier on, that sometimes we talk about how vulnerable we are, but then it is used against us, which in that sense makes us not want to share anything. But like whatever we do can be repeated. So whatever is done at night can be done during the day. So, what is the serpent you are hiding in your closet? So, you always want to be like, oh, if I want to open that closet, I need to be careful, which is, I'm talking about how the vulnerable situations. What you resist persists.
Yeah.
So if you have that vulnerability and you always want to avoid it, you don't want to talk about it, in your mind, it will always be there. And because that situation is always there in your head, it instead increases how vulnerable you are, and it makes it hard for you to be true to yourself.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that you go and talk about your everyday business to everyone who wants to hear. No. Have some sense of dignity. Say things to the people who matter, because a lot of people just want to get involved in other people's businesses, not because they will help you, but because they just want to have a topic to have lunch on. So be very, speak to the people who matter. A lot of people don't count. So just speak to the people who matter. And again, it will go back when you are talking about your vulnerability. What is the reason? Do you want to talk about it so that people accept you for who you are? That one is dependency. Say it the way they are, and people will always have different perceptions about you, because you might do good all the time. People's pleaser, where is that taking you to? Even as we are talking, there are lots of things that people have said against you, against me, against those watching, that probably will never know. So it's people's perception. You cannot control what people say, what people think about you. You only have control of what is within you, what you think, how you feel. So focus on the things within you, rather than trying to change things that are out of your control. That one leads to a lot of problems with yourself.
Okay, thank you for that, Nelly. When you were talking, it just came to mind that you only feel scared of sharing something if you do not trust the person to whom you are sharing it with. Because if you know who you're sharing it with, if you trust that person, you'll not be scared of being vulnerable in front of them, because you know that they have your back. So we are always scared of being vulnerable with somebody in a relationship if we do not trust them. So that is one thing I wanted to highlight, because trust in relationships when we're having conversation is very important. Right. So thank you for what.
Just on that one, sometimes you trust people and you share your vulnerable information with them, and they still use it against you anyway.
Yes, human behavior. The same, like you can be, me and you, we can be these lovely partners in this business, and tomorrow we fall out for a silly reason. So that is life. People, relationships happen. So, Lara, thank you for watching. And you have a really good question here. Can boundaries be set in a marriage too?
Is that another question?
It is a question that Lara
Okay.
asked in the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lara, for that question. Yeah. As long as you are breathing, boundaries exist. But then, like I say, what is the reason for the boundary? You need to think of, is the boundary coming from love, or is it out of fear? Those two things, I keep on talking about them because they are the two main emotions that we experience or that exist. Any other emotions come off these two. So I would just trying to think at the top of my head, yes, you put boundaries in place. Like, for instance, if you, okay, let's say you come back from work and you need to eat. That is your boundary, that when you come back from work, you need that time to calm down and eat, not for you to get in the house and you start a fight after having a 12-hour shift. You need to know what that boundary is. It shouldn't be because of self-defense, because sometimes people put in boundaries because of self-defense. If it's in a marriage and you put a boundary because of self-defense, it might be probably if you know your safety is at risk. But if it's for your own, whatever that reason is, you need to really examine the reason. But then, yes, in every situation, even like with your children, you need to put boundaries in place. Like I'll say for myself, like with my children, they know 9 o'clock is my time. I always spend that time to do my own thing so I can calm down. Because before I go to sleep, and I'm doing it because I find that it is really, really helpful, I always do practices that I will calm myself, whether sometimes just listening to soothing music, listening to meditation, anything. My children know. Though sometimes they'll come in and they'll be like, Mom, if I know that it's not an emergency, I don't listen to them. And over time, they knew that, oh, this is Mom's time to calm down. And it's gone on for some time and now they know. So yes, put boundaries in place because you need that dignity. You need your own me time. So yes, put the boundary, but always consider what are the boundaries for. Don't use it as a defense or just a protective measure. Find out, is it out of love? Is it out of fear? Always think about that. So I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you, Nelly. I may add a little bit on this. So what I would say is I'll agree with Nelly that in every relationship, there has to be boundaries. And these boundaries can be set from the very get-go. When you're getting into a relationship with somebody and to the point of marriage, you have to know, you have to talk about what you want the marriage to be like, what you are expecting from one another, who will do what, how many children you need to have. These things, when I was getting married, I did not discuss because I did not know any better. So some people had premarital counseling and they had all these conversations and these things taught to them. Some people did not. And so you get into it and then you're discovering things as you go along and then you're learning. And if you like me, who likes to learn and listen to a lot of podcasts, I listen to a lot of YouTube, I listen to a lot of preachers, so I listen to a lot of things and you pick up things along the way. And when you learn and you want to grow, you start learning that, okay, maybe you need to set a standard, maybe you need to put a boundary here and a boundary there, not disrespectfully, not to hurt the other person, not to show superiority in the relationship because you're supposed to be equal partners in it. Everything has to come down to that conversation. And as women, we sometimes struggle to have these difficult conversations, especially when it comes to standing up for what you believe in, or telling your husband or partner that, look, this thing that you're doing is not making me feel right, you know. So it is important that you have these conversations. I remember when I was still in Cameroon, when I was still learning to become a CWF member, and they were teaching about sex, sexual diseases, and AIDS at that time was very rampant. And the leader, I was in Peace in Simeon, she was teaching that Look, if you know that your husband is one who will stray all the time, you have to have that conversation about using condoms. You have to you don't it doesn't matter how, because if he infects you, it is not only you that is impacted, it's impacting your whole family. Because if you're sick, your children are vulnerable. Then who looks after your children? Who looks after, so it is important that we as women empower ourselves, learn, and then have these conversations if we need to have them, because avoiding them doesn't will not change. And setting those boundaries, if you tell your husband that, okay, we need to use condoms, it's not because you hate him. You're protecting yourself, you're protecting him as well. So it is important to have boundaries. And if it requires that conversation in your marriage, then if you've asked that question, then it means that maybe there is something that you need to discuss and come to a conclusion about. So yeah.
Yeah, Aqua, thank you for that. I mean, you've said certain things there that I think it will be worthwhile bringing that up as a whole topic,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of things that women, not really women, because women don't know, men don't know as well, because that is how we were brought up. They didn't tell you about preparing into getting, because, okay, just like our bodies, most people were not even told that your body will develop in this way, this way. You see things protruding here and there. People don't know. So we have learned through trial and errors till now. It is our responsibility as parents now, knowledgeable parents now, to teach our children so they don't grow up and start finding out. Because if we don't tell them, there are people out there who are ready to tell them and even teach them how their body looks like. So I think that one we'll have a different conversation on that, because I know we've gone way over the time. I don't know if we have any other question or any comments. You are on mute if you want to speak, by the way.
I was just putting in the comments that if people have topics of conversation that they would like us to talk on, or that they would like to come on the panel and discuss, then please feel free to share it with us, and you're welcome to join the panel. We'll just bring you on and you can share what is on your heart. So we are trying to build a community which will learn from one another, because us having this conversation doesn't mean that we know everything about this topic. I've learned a lot of things tonight that I didn't know before, thanks to Nelly's presentation. So please feel free to join the conversation, join us in hand, like, follow, share, so that we can reach as many people as possible. Yeah. So Nelly, thank you so much for tonight. I know there's so much more that we could talk about, but what I just want us to remember, that it is important that we have difficult conversations. It is important that we do not allow our emotions to lead us, because like Joyce Meyer says, your emotions can change in 30 days about the same topic 30 different times. You can feel the 30 different emotions about one single thing. So we should not allow our emotions to lead us. We should be the ones leading our emotions. It's important that we control ourselves and remain calm and focused when we're having difficult conversations. And like you said, have an outcome in mind. Have and be flexible about what your wins will be. Know what, draw your lines on your your red lines as well, because sometimes when you have these conversations, you need to know exactly what you'd like to be as an outcome. Doesn't mean that you have that outcome as you said, but come in knowing that, okay, if I have this conversation, This is what I would like to happen. This is people are different. I may come and tell you something and your response is totally different from what I was expecting. But know that if somebody has listened and they've reflected back to you, because sometimes it's not even the solution that matters, it's the fact that that person listened to what you had to say and understood you, even if they do not agree with you. So it is important that we remain focused and know what our outcomes will be. I'm just giving the summaries that Nelly gave earlier, so that we can remember and to understand the perspective of the other person as well. As we're having this conversation, it's not only about our points that we're trying to put across. Let us also be open to understand what the other person is trying to tell us. And difficult conversations can lead to very good outcomes, and it could be a greatest point of learning and growth. And it will be a confidence that if I have this one, I can be able to face the manager at work. So it is important that we be bold enough to have these conversations, courageous enough to have these conversations. Thank you. Nelly, any final words?
Thank you all for watching. I just want to take this opportunity, and today is a very special day for me, and I want to wish happy birthday to my mother,
Happy
who
birthday,
I
Mama.
know she is watching, because she's just the best that I can talk about. So happy birthday, mommy, and I just wish you the best, and have a blessed day, everyone.
Got announcements to make. Right. So, like we told you last week, are doing a mini launch, well, a small launch to event for people to get to know us and for people to get to know what we do. We want all you to all come and support our mini launch on the 3rd of December at Hebron Church in Rochdale from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll be looking at things like we'll do some workshops about emotions, about early language development as well, and we'll have snacks, games, craft activities. So come and join us and let's have fun together. Where can they contact us, Nelly?
And find out our information on our website, which is Han Community CIC.com. That's where we are. All our contact details are there. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.
God bless y'all. See you next week.